I'm going to take you to three places in the world: Callao, Mexico, Indianapolis, United States, and Ottawa, Canada. And what these places have in common is that these are where the family caregivers, the children who have parents who reside here in Montreal. And these parents have medical incapacities, they are seniors. The medical incapacities could be as a result of cognitive disorders, as a result of Alzheimer's or dementia. It could be physical impairments as a result of a stroke or ALS. I'd like to begin with a story in Mexico. This took place in April of 2012. I was invited to meet with a family. It was a son and a daughter. The son resides out of town in Hawaii. The daughter also resides out of town in Callao, Mexico. Their mother was living in an assisted living facility in Montreal on the West Island. We met on a Saturday afternoon, and the family had a specific request. Their mother's husband had just recently passed away, and they came to the conclusion that living here in Montreal was no longer an option for the mother, despite getting very, very good care at the assisted living facility. They wanted my help, and the help of Seniors Advisory Group, to help emigrate the mother to live with the daughter and their family in Mexico. This took place on a Saturday afternoon. On Monday morning, I was knocking on the door of the Consulate of Mexico here in Montreal on Peel Street. I met with a consular official and I explained to him the situation, and I asked him to take me through the process of what was involved. Over the next 6 months, we completed all the paperwork, took all the necessary steps, so that by the end of September, her mother, or this lady who was in her 90s at the time, was flying south with her daughter, and that's where she resided over the last 2 years. About 3 weeks ago, I received the very sad news from the son who lives in Mexico that his mother passed away very peacefully in her sleep. But he thanked us profusely for the gift that we gave to the family. That over the past 2 years, the last 2 years were absolutely wonderful. The mother loved being and living with her daughter and her family in Mexico. She was loved and cherished, and it was reciprocal. And it just was, it could not have been, or it could not have ended any better. That is an example of the essence of what we do at Seniors Advisory Group. The mechanics was going through the process, all the steps that were necessary for the emigration. Those were as I said, the mechanics, and they're very, very important because all the I's have to be dotted and the T's crossed. But the soul of what we do is the gift that we help give that family so that the mother would live with people who she absolutely cherished, and she spent the final years of her life there. At Seniors Advisory Group, we're for our clients on a 24/7 basis, and that means we have to be the first responders. So now I'm going to take you to Indianapolis in the United States, where one of my clients, a son who has his mother living here in Montreal in an assisted living facility. This took place about a year and a half ago, and I got a phone call. It was about 11:30 at night. I remember it very clearly. It was on a Sunday evening, and I was just about ready to fall asleep, and I got a phone call from the assisted living facility, very concerned because the lady, the senior, was becoming very confused. She was slurring her speech, and they felt it was necessary to send her to the hospital by ambulance, and they wanted my permission to do so, which was no problem. I packed up my emergency kit, which I always have beside me, and I met her down at the hospital. I walked into the emergency room and I found her lying on a stretcher, all by herself, tucked in a corner, people just going by her, virtually being ignored. And I walked up to her, and her smile just lit up the room as soon as she saw me. She grabbed hold of my arm, and as if I was her lifeline. And I reassured her, but then I went into the mode of being her advocate. I made my presence known with the medical personnel, and at 2:30 in the morning, the physicians, the medical staff, started to examine this woman who is in her 90s. They were very concerned. They didn't know exactly what was going wrong, but they had scheduled her for a battery of tests to take place the following morning. I immediately called her son in Indianapolis and advised him to come into Montreal as quickly as possible. It turned out that our concerns were justified. This lady was harboring a massive infection of an abscess just developing underneath her liver, and the toxins were already spilling into her system. She spent the next 3 months in the hospital, sometimes at the point of death. They had to hit her with everything under the sun, all antibiotics, all antivirals, and today she is living comfortably in her assisted living facility, reading about 3 to 5 books a week. Now, do I credit Seniors Advisory Group for saving her life? Absolutely not. That credit goes to the medical staff. But as Woody Allen once said, 90% of life is just showing up. At Seniors Advisory Group, we do a little bit more than just showing up. We were there as her advocate to make sure that everything that was necessary, that was going to get done. She is a very, very special person. She is 98 years today, and as I said, she is an avid reader, reading 3 to 5 books a week, and it's just wonderful just being around her. The third story that I'd like to share with you deals with, now I'm going to take you to Ottawa, Canada, where once again it's a caregiver, a daughter whose parents live here in Montreal. It's a senior couple in their mid-80s living in a suburb of Montreal. The husband suffers from cognitive disorders, and it's the wife who has taken on the primary role of being that family caregiver. And being in your mid-80s, that's a very difficult prospect for anyone, let alone someone in their mid-80s. And she's on the firing line 24/7 hours a day. Over the last 2 years, we have helped this family in all aspects, the financials, the legal, home care, assisted living, property management, anything that needed to be done to help the family. We were there to make sure that took place. I'd like to share with you an email that I received from the daughter who lives in Ottawa. Goes, "Hi Jeff, I hope all is well. This is an unbelievably belated thank you for all you've done for my parents and by extension for all of us in the last few months and over the past 2 years. My sincere apologies for not having been in touch for quite some time. My mother has relayed all of your good wishes, etc., and we were very touched. I was in Montreal over the weekend, and as you know, my mother is having a very hard time with her health, my father, my sister's living situation, and life in general. It looks like we are entering a new phase, and some difficult decisions may need to be made in the near future. It is such a relief to know that you were there to help. Thanks again for all you do. I hope to see you in person one of these days. Jane." I shared with you 3 stories of children who live out of town taking care being responsible for their parents living here in Montreal. It is an overwhelming experience, particularly when you're not here, okay? Trying to deal with this at a distance is a virtual impossibility, and that's where BGK Seniors Advisory can, in fact, make the difference. But we also have our clients, family caregivers who live here in Montreal. And again, because it is such an overwhelming experience, and because these caregivers have their own lives, taking care of their own children, their own careers, once again, Seniors Advisory Group is there to help them as well. So I thank you very, very much for your time and for listening to me. It's a pleasure. Thank you.